Hello everyone, today we're going to learn how to simplify with using addition on a number line. So here, let's start off with a couple of numbers. You're probably familiar with most of these numbers. So we have 1, 2, 3/4, a pi, which is 3.14159, and finally we have -4. Now if you notice, the first four numbers are positive, last number is negative. So how do you think of a negative number? Well, oftentimes you can think of numbers as quantities, right? So like say the number 2, well, that represents, in this example, 2 pizzas. The number 3/4, that represents 3/4 of a pizza. But what exactly does -2 represent? You can't really have -2 of something. So you have to think of negative numbers in a different way. And the way we're going to do that is numbers as steps. So essentially, let's say you wanted to visualize numbers as steps forward. So the number 2 is going to be 2 steps forward. So let's take another example, right? We have the number -2. So you probably guessed it. While positive 2 is 2 steps forward, -2 is going to be 2 steps backwards. And we could do a little bit more complicated things. So let's say in this example, right? We want to do 2 plus -3. Well, that's going to be 2 steps forward, and that's going to be 3 steps back. So you ended up at 1 step back from where you originally started at. So you can think of negative numbers essentially as steps backwards from 0. And negative numbers always have the property of opposite. That's essentially saying if you go forward 5 steps and then you go back 5 steps, you're at your starting point. Same ways, like in our final example here, if you go back 4 steps and forward 4 steps, you're back at your starting point. So let's look at a number line, right? So a number line generally starts off in the center. In this example, we're going to use 0, and then it has a point, and then it goes forward a certain number. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way into infinity. And then the number line goes backwards. So it goes into -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. But number lines don't always necessarily look like this. There can be different types of number lines. In this example, we have a number line with a different scale from -100 to 100. This number line has a smaller scale, -1 to 1. This number line is only positive numbers. The next one is only negative numbers. This number is a scientific scale, specifically the Fahrenheit scale. And the final number line we're showing here actually demonstrates abstract quantities. So let's map a couple of points on a number line. So number 1, that's 1 step forward. And you probably guessed it that number 2 is going to be 2 steps forward. And then 3/4, well, that's going to be 3/4 steps forward. And then pi, that's going to be 3.14159 steps forward. And then finally, we have the number -4. That's going to be 4 steps back. So let's visualize how you do addition on a number line. So let's start off, you always start off at 0. And let's say we wanted to move forward 2 places. So that's going to be 1, 2. Now let's say we move forward 3. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3. Now we're at 5, right? Now let's move back 7. So when we move back 7, that's going to be from 5, you're going to go all the way until you go to -2. And then let's go back 2 more. So we're going to go back to -4. And then finally we're going to go forward 4. And then when you go forward 4, we're going to end up back at where we started at, which was 0. So let's do a few examples, right? So this number is, we want to simplify 4 plus -8. So again, we start off at 0, and then we're going to go forward 4 places. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we want to go back 8. So now we're going to go back 8 spots. And then we're going to get to -4. And our final answer, we know 4 plus -8 is now -4. So let's look at this other example, right? So it's a little bit more complicated. -5 plus 9 plus -6. So we want to start off at 0. This time we're going to, because it's -5, we're going to go back 5 steps. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we want to go forward 9 steps. And then when we get there, it's going to take a little bit. We're going to get to +4, so 4 steps forward. And now we're going to go 6 steps back. And then when we get there, it's going to be -2. And that's going to be our final answer. So we know negative 5 plus 9 plus negative 6 is equal to negative 2. So let's look at a little bit more complicated example. Now this scale is a little bit different. It's a little bit different than any of the ones we've seen. Now you can see everything here is broken up in segments of 1/3. So we're going to be moving not in segments of 1, 2, 3, but segments of 1/3, 2/3, and 3/3. So we're going to start off at 0, and then we're going to go back negative 7/3. So it's going to be 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, 4/3, 5/3, 6/3, 7/3. Now the same way we're going to go all the way to the other side of the screen. We're going to go plus 14/3. And we're going to end up, it's going to take us a little bit to get there, but we're going to end up at positive 7/3. And then finally, from there, we're going to go back 5/3. As we can see here, and then we step back negative 5/3 places, and we're going to end up at positive 2/3 as our final answer. Now finally, our genius example. Now if you look at the scale, it's not in numbers anymore, it's in abstract quantities. So everything we're going to go forward or back is going to have a in it. So, but it's not much more complicated once you understand the logic. So we want to start off by going back negative 7a over 2 spaces. So we basically go back that number of spots. So, and we're at negative 7a over 2. And then finally we want to go forward 11a over 2 places. Right? And then when we do that, we're going to end up at positive 2a, which is basically 2a steps forward. And then we want to go back negative 5a over 2. And when we do that, we're going to get to negative a over 2 as our final answer.